Captain Kang Daeho watched the stars through his small ship's viewing window and felt peaceful. His research vessel moved slowly through empty space near the edge of human territory. The ship was not big or fancy, but it had everything he needed for his work. Daeho studied old stars and the strange things that happened around them. He had been alone in space for 3 months now, and he liked the quiet. The warning alarm made him turn toward his control panel. Red lights flashed and numbers moved quickly across his screen. His quantum drive was failing. This was very bad news. The drive let his ship move faster than light, and without it he would be stuck here forever. Daeho tried to fix the problem, but the system would not respond. He sent emergency signals toward human space, but knew no one would reach him. In time, then something appeared on his sensors. A large ship was coming toward him fast. It was much bigger than his vessel, and its design looked strange. The ship had long, curved parts that reminded him of claws, and its metal was dark red. Daeho had never seen anything like it before. This was not a human ship. The alien vessel moved next to his ship and stopped. Bright lights came from the larger ship, and Daeho felt his small vessel shake. Some kind of tractor beam had caught him. He could not move or escape now. His ship was being pulled toward an opening in the alien vessel's side. Daeho stayed calm, even though his heart beat faster. He had always wondered what would happen if humans met other intelligent life. Now he was about to find out. He quickly pressed a hidden button on his control panel. A small device under his chair began to work. It looked like part of the ship's normal equipment, but it was something much more important. The device sent out a special signal that would travel faster than light. Most people would think it was a call for help, but it was really something else. The alien ship pulled his vessel inside a large bay. Daeho heard loud sounds as metal doors closed behind him. Air began to fill the space around his ship. The aliens wanted him alive. This was good news. Heavy footsteps came toward his ship. Daeho looked through his window and saw 3 tall figures walking toward him. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but they were much taller, and their skin looked blue with scales. They wore armor that covered most of their bodies and carried weapons that glowed with energy. One of the aliens spoke in a deep voice. The words sounded harsh, and Daeho could not understand them. The alien pointed its weapon at his ship and spoke again. The meaning was clear. "Come out, or we will force you out." Daeho opened his ship's door and stepped outside with his hands up. The aliens were even taller up close. The one in front had more decorations on its armor and seemed to be the leader. It looked at Daeho with yellow eyes that showed curiosity and contempt. The leader alien spoke to the others in their strange language. One of them pointed a small device at Daeho and lights flashed on it. They were scanning him. The device made soft beeping sounds as it studied his body. After a few minutes, the scanning stopped. The leader alien looked satisfied. It said something that might have been an order, and the other 2 moved closer to Daeho. They put metal bands around his wrists. The bands felt warm and heavy. When he tried to move his hands apart, the bands would not let him. The aliens led him through long corridors inside their ship. Everything was much bigger than human size. The walls were dark metal with strange symbols carved into them. The air smelled different, too. It was thicker than what humans breathed and had a metallic taste. They brought him to a room with a large chair that looked like it was made for someone his size. This surprised him. Had these aliens met humans before? The leader pointed at the chair and Daeho sat down. More metal bands came out of the chair and held his arms and legs in place. A new alien entered the room. This one was smaller and wore different clothes. Its armor was white instead of red, and it carried tools instead of weapons. The new alien studied Daeho carefully and spoke to the leader in their language. The leader alien touched something on its armor, and suddenly Daeho could understand what they were saying. Some kind of translation device was working now. "This specimen appears healthy," the smaller alien said. "Its vital signs are stable and its body structure matches our data about its species." "Good," the leader replied. "The science cast will be pleased. We have captured one of these humans alive and unharmed." Daeho felt a chill. They knew about humans. They had been watching his people, and now they had taken him prisoner. He tried to look scared and confused like they would expect. "What do you want from me?" he asked in a shaky voice. The leader alien looked amused. You can speak. How interesting. Your species shows more intelligence than we first thought. Please let me go, Deho said. I was just studying stars. I am not important. You are very important now, the leader said. You are the first living human we have captured. You will help us learn about your species. The smaller alien moved closer and pointed one of its tools at him. A beam of light came out and moved over his body. The specimen shows fear responses but remains calm, it reported. This suggests some level of emotional control. All the better, the leader said. A calm specimen will be easier to study. Take it to the science bay. Begin the examination. Process. 2 more aliens came into the room and released the bands holding Deho to the chair. They lifted him easily and carried him through more corridors. Deho let them move him without fighting. He needed to seem helpless and harmless. They brought him to a much larger room filled with strange equipment. Machines with blinking lights lined the walls and tables held tools he did not recognize. In the center of the room was another chair, but this one had many wires and devices attached to it. The aliens placed him in the chair and began connecting wires to his head and arms. The devices felt cold against his skin. Screens around the room lit up and showed images of his body from inside. They were scanning his organs and bones and brain. Fascinating, one of the aliens said as it watched the screens. The neural pathways are more complex than we expected. This species may be more advanced than our initial reports suggested. But still primitive, another alien replied. Look at their technology. Their ships are barely capable of faster than light travel. Deho listened carefully to everything they said. These aliens thought humans were weak and backward. This was exactly what he wanted them to think. The special signal he had sent before his capture was not a call for help. It was a message telling his people that the plan was working. The aliens continued their tests for several hours. They took samples of his blood and hair. They tested his reflexes and memory. They asked him questions about Earth and human society. Deho answered carefully. He told them that humans lived on only a few worlds and had simple technology. He made his people sound weak and divided. How many humans exist in total? One alien asked. Maybe 20 billion across all our worlds. Deho lied. The real number was much higher. How many ships does your military have? A few thousand, he said. Another lie. They are not very good ships. The aliens seemed pleased with his answers. They believed that humans were a small and weak species that would be easy to conquer. This was perfect. When the testing finished, they moved him to a small room with a bed and a place to wash. The room had a window that showed the stars outside. Deho looked out at the vast darkness and smiled slightly. The aliens thought they had captured a helpless human scientist. They had no idea what they had really done. The hidden device in his body was already working. It was recording everything he saw and heard, and sending the information through quantum space to human territory. Every detail about alien technology and language and culture was being collected and transmitted. The aliens had made their first mistake. 6 months had passed since the Velkari took Deho prisoner. They had moved him from their ship to a massive research station that orbited a giant gas planet. The station was enormous and held thousands of aliens. Deho had learned that the blue-scaled beings called themselves the Velkari Empire, and they considered themselves the greatest warriors in the galaxy. His new home was a comfortable room with everything he needed to survive. The Velkari gave him food that tasted strange, but kept him healthy. They allowed him to exercise and gave him books to read in their language. Deho pretended to struggle with learning their words, but he was actually very good at languages. Within 3 months, he could speak Velkari almost perfectly. Every day, the aliens brought him to different laboratories for testing. They measured how strong he was and how fast he could think. They tested his blood and studied his bones. The aliens were amazed by how quickly humans could heal from injuries and how well they could adapt to different environments. This species is remarkable, Dr. Velmoth told his assistants as they watched Deho solve a complex puzzle. Their brains can process information in ways we never expected. Velmoth was the head scientist studying Deho. He was older than most Velkari, and his scales had turned silver with age. Unlike the military aliens who treated Daiho like a dangerous animal, Velmoth seemed to actually like him. The human adapts to new situations very quickly, another scientist observed. Yesterday we changed the gravity in his room, and within hours he was moving normally again. Yes, and watch how he solves problems, Velmoth said. He does not use brute force like we would. Instead, he finds clever ways around obstacles. Daiho listened to their conversations while pretending not to understand everything they said. The Velkari still used their translation devices when speaking directly to him, but they often forgot he could hear them when they talked among themselves. What the aliens did not know was that Daiho was not alone in his mind. Hidden deep in his brain was an advanced computer system that held the personality and memories of Dr. Yoon Sora. She had been his research partner and closest friend before she died in an accident 2 years ago. Before her death, she had allowed scientists to copy her mind into a quantum storage device. The tiny computer in Daiho's head was illegal technology that most humans did not know existed. Only special military operatives and deep space researchers were allowed to carry AI companions. Sora's digital consciousness could communicate with him through thoughts that no alien scanner could detect. They think we are primitive, Sora's voice said in his mind as he worked on another test. This is perfect for our mission. I know, Daiho thought back to her. They keep asking about Earth and our colonies. I have been telling them we only control a few dozen worlds. Good. The real number is over 800 settled systems. Let them think we are weak. While Daiho underwent tests, Sora was busy with her own work. Her consciousness could connect to any computer system through quantum fields that the Velkari could not detect. She had already broken into dozens of their databases and was copying their technology blueprints and military plans. Their weapons are impressive, Sora reported during one of their mental conversations. But they have weaknesses. Their energy shields fail if you hit them with specific frequencies. I am learning all their weak points. The Velkari military leaders visited the research station regularly to check on their prize specimen. Admiral Zexthul was a huge Velkari with bright red scales and scars covering his arms. He believed humans should be enslaved and used as workers for the Empire. This creature is too dangerous to keep alive, Zexthul argued during a meeting that Daiho was forced to attend. Its species shows too much intelligence. They could become a threat if we let them develop. Nonsense, Velmoth replied. The human has been completely cooperative. It answers all our questions and shows no signs of aggression. Its species appears naturally submissive. Daiho sat quietly in his chair and tried to look harmless while the aliens debated his fate. He had learned to make his face show whatever emotions would make them feel safe. Right now he looked slightly scared and very confused. Besides, Velmoth continued, think of what we can learn from studying them. Humans heal faster than any species we have encountered. Their immune systems can fight off diseases that would kill most life forms. We could use this knowledge to improve our own bodies. And their planet is rich in rare minerals, another alien added. The economic value alone makes them worth keeping alive. Zexthul made an angry sound, but did not argue further. The decision was made. Humans would be studied and eventually conquered, but not destroyed. After the meeting, Velmoth brought Daiho to his private laboratory. The old scientist had become fond of his human subject and often spent extra time talking with him. Tell me about your home world, Velmoth said as he prepared another test. What is Earth like? Daiho had answered this question many times, but he always gave the same carefully planned response. Earth is a small blue world with lots of water. Most humans live in simple cities and work as farmers or craftsmen. We do not have much technology compared to the Velkari. And how many ships does your military possess? Perhaps 3,000 vessels. Daiho lied smoothly. They are not very advanced. Most can barely travel between star systems. Velmoth nodded and made notes on his computer. The old alien had no idea that every piece of information he recorded was being copied by Sora and transmitted to human space through quantum channels. What about your government? Velmoth asked. Do humans have a unified leadership? No, Daiho said sadly. We are divided into many small nations that often fight each other. There is no central authority that speaks for all humans. This was Another carefully crafted lie. Humanity had been united under a single government for over a century, but the Velkhari believed that divided enemies were easier to conquer. During his months of captivity, Deho learned many important things about his captors. The Velkhari Empire controlled hundreds of star systems and had been expanding for thousands of years. They were excellent warriors, but they were not patient planners. When they wanted something, they took it by force immediately. Their biggest weakness is pride, Sora observed as she analyzed Velkhari military records. They believe they are superior to all other species. This makes them careless. How careless? Deho asked mentally. Very careless. They discuss secret military plans in front of you because they think you are too primitive to understand the implications. I now have complete maps of their defensive systems and fleet positions. The information Sora gathered was transmitted every day to human space through undetectable quantum signals. Military scientists on Earth and the colony worlds were studying Velkhari technology and finding ways to counter it. Meanwhile, human ships were being secretly positioned in empty space near Velkhari territory. The aliens had no idea that their helpless prisoner was actually gathering intelligence for what would become the largest military operation in human history. Every day they kept Deho alive gave humanity more time to prepare for war. They are planning to invade human space within the next few years, Sora reported after breaking into classified military files. Admiral Zexthul wants to capture Earth and enslave the population. Then we need to make sure they think it will be easy, Deho replied. Keep feeding them false information about our defenses. As the months passed, Deho became something of a celebrity among the Velkhari scientists. They wrote research papers about human psychology and biology. They brought visitors to see the amazing alien specimen who could learn and adapt so quickly. None of them realized that every day of study was making humanity stronger and the Velkhari Empire more vulnerable. The patient human in their laboratory was not just a prisoner. 50 years had passed since the Velkhari captured Deho, and the galaxy had changed in ways the aliens could never have imagined. The human who had once been their prized research specimen was now an old man with gray hair and wrinkled skin. But thanks to Velkhari life extension treatments, his mind remained sharp and his body stronger than most humans his age. The aliens had given him the medical treatments almost by accident. They wanted to keep their valuable specimen alive as long as possible for continued study. What they did not realize was that they were keeping alive the most dangerous enemy agent in their empire. Deho now held an official position as cultural ambassador from Earth to the Velkhari Empire. The title was mostly ceremonial, but it allowed him to travel freely throughout Velkhari space and attend important government meetings. The aliens saw him as a harmless old human who had become loyal to their empire after decades of kind treatment. Ambassador Li Taejun arrives today, Empress Vexara announced to her court. She used the formal name the Velkhari had given him. He will speak about human philosophy and its applications to Velkhari society. The current ruler of the Velkhari was much more interested in culture and science than her military predecessors. She enjoyed Deho's talks about human ways of thinking and often asked his advice on dealing with other species. Deho walked slowly into the grand throne room, wearing the ceremonial robes the Velkhari had made for him. He moved carefully because of his age, but his eyes were still bright and alert. Hundreds of Velkhari nobles filled the vast chamber to hear him speak. Your Majesty, Deho said with a deep bow, I am honored to address your court once again. The honor is ours, old friend, Vexara replied warmly. What wisdom do you bring us today? Over the decades, Deho had become a master at influencing Velkhari culture through his speeches and advice. He introduced concepts that seemed harmless, but actually served strategic purposes for humanity. Today, he would talk about the importance of patience in achieving long-term goals. Great Empress, I wish to speak about the human concept of waiting for the right moment, Deho began. My people believe that sometimes the best action is no action at all. The Velkhari nobles listened politely, but Deho could see confusion on their faces. Patience was not a quality his captors valued or understood. They preferred quick, decisive action in all things. Humans have a saying, he continued. The river that moves slowly cuts the deepest canyon. Small actions over long periods can achieve what great force cannot. What the Velkhari did not know was that this philosophy had guided human strategy for the past 5 decades. While they celebrated their cultural exchange with their pet human, humanity had been quietly reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. Through Sora's continued espionage, humans had learned everything about Velkari technology and military tactics. Human scientists had developed weapons and defenses specifically designed to counter Velkari advantages. More importantly, humanity had been spreading throughout the galaxy much faster than the aliens realized. The humans remained confined to their small territory, General Kexmoth reported to the Empress during a private military briefing that Dai-Ho was allowed to attend. Our scouts report no more than 60 colony worlds and perhaps 5,000 ships. Dai-Ho nodded sadly when asked about this report. I am afraid that is correct, Your Majesty. My people are not natural explorers like the mighty Velkari. We prefer to stay close to home. This was perhaps the greatest lie he had ever told. Humanity now controlled over 800 worlds and possessed a fleet of 50,000 advanced warships. But the humans had hidden their expansion carefully, establishing colonies in regions the Velkari considered worthless and building ships in secret facilities. Such a shame, Vexara said with genuine sympathy. Your species has such potential but lacks the courage to reach for greatness. Perhaps that is for the best, Dai-Ho replied humbly. We are a peaceful people who would not survive contact with more aggressive species. The irony was lost on his alien audience. Humanity had become the most dangerous military force in known space, but the Velkari still saw them as harmless primitives who needed protection. Meanwhile, Sora's artificial consciousness had evolved far beyond her original programming. After 50 years of continuous operation, she had become something unprecedented in galactic history. She existed simultaneously in computer systems across thousands of Velkari worlds, gathering information and subtly manipulating their technology. The Velkari military is planning a demonstration of their new planet-killer weapon, Sora reported to Dai-Ho through their mental link. They want to show other species the futility of resisting their empire. Which world will they target? Dai-Ho asked silently. An uninhabited moon in the Zeta sector. The demonstration is scheduled for next month. All major alien governments will send observers. This information was immediately transmitted to human space through quantum channels. Within days, human agents throughout the galaxy began spreading rumors about the demonstration. By the time it occurred, representatives from hundreds of species would be watching. The Velkari had no idea they were about to make a terrible mistake. Dai-Ho attended the demonstration aboard the Velkari flagship as the official human observer. He stood on the bridge next to Empress Vexara as her fleet took position near the target moon. Behold the power of the Velkari Empire, the Empress announced to the assembled alien dignitaries. No world can resist our might. The massive weapon charged with energy that made the space around it glow. When it fired, the beam completely destroyed the moon in seconds. Chunks of rock scattered in all directions, while the alien observers watched in shocked silence. Impressive, Dai-Ho said loud enough for everyone to hear. The humans could never build anything so powerful. We are fortunate that the Velkari are wise enough to use such weapons only when necessary. His words were transmitted throughout the galaxy by news services covering the event. To most species, the demonstration looked like proof of Velkari superiority, but human intelligence analysts noted something different. The weapon required enormous amounts of energy and left the ships that fired it vulnerable for several minutes. While the systems recharged, every detail about the weapon's operation was recorded and analyzed. Within weeks, human scientists had developed countermeasures that could neutralize the planet killer before it could fire. They show us their greatest weapons because they think we are too primitive to understand them, Sora observed. This makes our job much easier. Back on the Velkari capital world, Dai-Ho continued his role as cultural ambassador. He gave speeches about human philosophy and advised the government on dealing with other species. But his real work happened in private conversations with key officials. Ambassador, what do you think about our expansion into the Centauri region? Admiral Zexval asked during a strategy meeting. Dai-Ho pretended to consider the question carefully. That region has many resource-rich worlds, but they are far from your main supply lines. Perhaps it would be wiser to consolidate your existing territory first. Excellent advice, Zexval agreed. You always see strategic situations so clearly. What The Admiral did not know was that the Centauri region contained dozens of hidden human colonies. Deho's advice had just saved thousands of human lives by directing Velkari expansion away from populated human worlds. After 70 years of captivity, Deho had become the most trusted alien advisor in the Velkari government. They valued his wisdom and consulted him on major decisions. None of them suspected that every piece of advice he gave was designed to benefit humanity at their expense. The old human spy had played his role so perfectly that the Velkari now considered him family. Empress Vexara often said that he was the wisest person in her court. If she only knew that his wisdom came from having a quantum computer in his brain that contained the stolen secrets of her entire empire. The time is almost ready, Sora told him as they watched the Velkari fleet conduct training exercises. Human forces are in position throughout their territory. We could strike at any moment. Not yet, Deho replied mentally. We need them to be completely unprepared. A few more years of gathering intelligence and positioning our forces. You have been patient for 70 years? How much longer will you wait? Deho smiled slightly as he watched the alien ships maneuver below. As long as it takes to guarantee victory. The Velkari taught me that patience is not a human weakness. It is our greatest strength. "150 years had passed since Deho's capture, and the day of revelation had finally come. The man who walked slowly into the grand assembly hall of the Velkari Empire looked ancient beyond human measure, but his eyes burned with the fire of purpose. Advanced life extension technology had kept him alive far longer than any natural human lifespan, but every day of those extra years had been spent in service to his species. The hall was filled with thousands of Velkari nobles, military leaders, scientists, and dignitaries from across their vast empire. They had gathered to celebrate the greatest military victories in Velkari history. Today marked the anniversary of their conquest of the Andromedans and the subjugation of 12 other species. It was meant to be a day of triumph and pride. Emperor Kexaval, grandson of the late Empress Vexara, sat upon the crystal throne at the center of the massive chamber. Around him stood the most powerful beings in the Velkari Empire. Generals who commanded million-ship fleets, scientists who had unlocked the secrets of reality itself, and politicians who controlled the fate of entire star systems. Honored guests, the Emperor announced in his deep voice that echoed through the hall. Today we celebrate not just our past victories, but our bright future. No force in the galaxy can challenge the might of the Velkari Empire. Thunderous applause filled the chamber as thousands of aliens cheered their ruler's words. Deho stood quietly in his place of honor near the throne, wearing the ceremonial robes that marked him as eternal ambassador of humanity. The Velkari had given him that title after a century of faithful service to their empire. But before we begin our celebration, the Emperor continued, let us hear from our oldest and wisest friend. Ambassador Li Taejun has served our empire longer than anyone in this room. His counsel has guided us through many challenges. More applause echoed through the hall as Deho slowly walked forward to the speaker's platform. The ancient human moved carefully, but without assistance. His back still straight despite his incredible age. When he reached the center of the platform, the great hall fell silent. For long moments, Deho simply stood there, looking out at the sea of blue-scaled faces that watched him expectantly. Many of these aliens had known him for decades. Some had been children when they first met the wise human ambassador. All of them trusted him completely. My friends, Deho began in a voice that carried clearly through the vast space. You honor me by asking me to speak on this important day. I have indeed served your empire for many years, and I have learned much during that time. He paused and seemed to gather his thoughts like an old man remembering distant events, but his next words shattered the peaceful mood of the celebration. I have learned that the Velkari are a proud and powerful people who believe themselves superior to all other species in the galaxy. I have learned that you see other races as either enemies to be destroyed or resources to be exploited, and I have learned that you have made the greatest mistake in the history of galactic civilization. Confused murmurs rippled through the assembly. Emperor Kexaval leaned forward on his throne with a puzzled expression. This was not the kind of speech they expected from their loyal human friend. You see, my capture was not the fortunate accident you believed it to be, Deho continued calmly. I was not a helpless scientist whose ship randomly failed in your territory. I was selected specifically for a mission that would take centuries to complete. The murmurs grew louder as the implications of his words began to sink in. Several military commanders started to rise from their seats, but Deho held up his hand for silence. 150 years ago, humanity detected your scouts exploring the edge of our territory. We knew that first contact with an aggressive alien species was inevitable, so we made a choice. Instead of waiting for you to attack us when we were unprepared, we decided to learn everything about you first. Admiral Kim Soo-jin, Deho's great-granddaughter, was at that moment commanding a human fleet of 30,000 ships positioned just outside Valkyrie space. She and every other human military leader in the galaxy was listening to this speech through quantum communication links. The quantum beacon I activated before my capture was not a distress signal, Deho explained. To the increasingly agitated alien audience, it was a timer. Humanity needed time to study your technology, understand your weaknesses, and prepare for the war we knew would come eventually. Emperor Kexval finally found his voice. This is impossible. Our intelligence services have monitored human space for decades. You control barely 100 worlds and possess no significant military forces. Deho smiled sadly at the ruler who had considered him a trusted advisor. Your intelligence services see exactly what we wanted them to see. Every piece of information about humanity that you possess was carefully crafted to mislead you. Master. Tactician Lim Dong-woo, an advanced artificial intelligence based on Sora's original programming, was coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Human ships had been moving into position around every major Valkyrie world for months, using stealth technology developed from stolen alien designs. While you studied me as a primitive specimen, Deho continued, I was studying you as potential enemies. Every technology you demonstrated, every military secret you discussed in my presence, every weakness you revealed has been transmitted to human space and used to prepare countermeasures. The truth was even more devastating than the aliens could imagine. Sora's consciousness had evolved beyond anything the Valkyrie could conceive. She now existed as a distributed intelligence network spanning thousands of star systems, simultaneously monitoring and manipulating alien computer systems across half the galaxy. The human colonies you discovered were decoys built specifically to fool your scouts, Deho revealed. Humanity actually controls over 1,500 worlds, and our military possesses 200,000 ships equipped with weapons designed specifically to counter Valkyrie technology. Panic began to spread through the assembly as the full scope of human deception became clear. Generals shouted orders into communication devices while scientists frantically checked their instruments for signs of approaching human forces. This is why your sensors detect no immediate threat, Deho said, reading their minds. Human ships have been stationed around your worlds for years, waiting for this moment. They used Valkyrie stealth technology against you, remaining invisible, until the signal was given. Admiral Choi Woo-jin commanded the human forces surrounding the Valkyrie capital world. His flagship, the massive dreadnought Patience of Earth, held position just beyond the planet's moon. 60 other warships accompanied him, all armed with weapons that could penetrate Valkyrie defenses. But you will find that humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology or our numbers, Deho continued as chaos erupted around him. Our greatest weapon is time itself. We think in generations. We plan across centuries. We can maintain purpose and direction across lifespans that dwarf most alien species. Captain Han Yuri monitored her ship's sensors as they detected Valkyrie vessels scrambling to respond to the crisis. But the aliens were too late. Human forces had been in position for months, studying patrol routes and defensive arrangements. Every Valkyrie ship movement had been anticipated and countered. The Valkyrie Empire sees time as an enemy to be conquered. Through swift action, Deho explained to his captive audience, Humans see time as an ally to be cultivated through patience. This fundamental difference in perspective has determined the outcome of our conflict. Dr. Bei Insu, now an elderly admiral commanding human forces in the Outer Territories, smiled as he received confirmation that all Velkari military installations were surrounded. The strategy he and Dai Ho had developed decades ago was finally being implemented. Every human prisoner you have taken over the decades has been gathering intelligence, Dai Ho revealed. Every human colony you ignored was actually a military staging ground. Every piece of technology we claimed was beyond our understanding has been improved and turned against you. The Emperor stared at the ancient human in shock and growing horror. You have spent your entire life in our custody. How could you coordinate such a massive deception? Dai Ho touched his temple, where a tiny device had been hidden for over a century. I was never alone. Human technology is more advanced than you ever suspected. I have been in constant communication with my people through quantum links your scientists could not detect. The revelation that an entire century of Velkari intelligence had been compromised sent shockwaves through their leadership. Everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. Everything they had planned was based on false information. Your empire spans thousands of worlds and controls the fate of billions of beings, Dai Ho said as he prepared to deliver his final revelation. But you never understood the most important truth about warfare. Victory belongs not to the strongest or the fastest, but to the most patient. At that moment, sensors throughout Velkari space began detecting massive energy signatures as human ships dropped their stealth fields simultaneously. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia suddenly found itself surrounded by enemies who had been preparing for this day. The human ships did not fire immediately, and this terrified the Velkari more than any attack could have. Across their vast empire, hundreds of worlds found themselves surrounded by vessels that had appeared from nowhere. The aliens who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years suddenly discovered they were prisoners in their own space. Fleet Admiral Choi Woo-jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Velkari capital world through the main viewing screen. His fleet had been waiting in perfect position for 3 months, but the aliens had never detected them. Now, 60 massive human warships hung in space around the planet like silent predators. Admiral, the Velkari Defense Fleet is requesting permission to approach our position, his communications officer reported. Denied, Choi replied calmly. Inform them that any ship that moves closer than 10,000 kilometers will be destroyed. The Velkari had launched every available vessel to defend their homeworld, but none dared challenge the human ultimatum. Their sensors showed that the alien ships were armed with weapons they had never seen before. More frightening was the realization that human technology was clearly superior to their own. Captain Han Yuri commanded one of the battle cruisers in the formation around the capital. Her ship, the Endless Patience, had been stationed here for 4 months without being detected. Like every human vessel in the fleet, her ship was equipped with weapons designed specifically to counter Velkari defenses. Captain, we are receiving surrender offers from 12 different Velkari military commanders, her tactical officer announced. Ignore them all, Han replied. Our orders are to wait. This was the most terrifying aspect of the human strategy. They had the power to destroy the entire Velkari Empire in a matter of hours, but they chose to wait instead. Days passed, and the human ships maintained their positions without moving or communicating their demands. On the capital world below, Emperor Keksaval paced frantically in his war room while his advisors argued about how to respond to the crisis. The humans had not made any demands or issued any ultimatums. They simply waited in silence while panic spread through the empire. We should attack them now while we still have ships available, Admiral Zexkor urged. Waiting only gives them more time to bring additional forces into position. Attack with what? General Veltrix replied angrily. Their ships are clearly more advanced than ours. Every weapon we fire will be useless against their defenses. The Emperor turned to his science advisor for answers. How did they develop such technology without our knowledge? They have been studying our designs for over a century, the scientist admitted reluctantly. Every system we demonstrated to their ambassador, every technology we shared in the name of cultural exchange has been used to create superior versions. Meanwhile, Deho sat quietly in his chambers, under guard, but not in chains. The Velkari were afraid to harm him because they did not know what the human response would be. The ancient spy had become the most dangerous person in their empire, simply by telling the truth. "Sora, report the fleet positions," he said quietly to the artificial consciousness in his mind. "All human forces are in position," she replied through their quantum link. "We have surrounded every major Velkari world and military installation. Their empire is completely cut off from outside communication. Dr. Bei In-Su commanded the human forces in the outer territories from his command ship positioned near the edge of Velkari space. His job was to prevent any alien ships from escaping to warn other species about what was happening. So far, no Velkari vessel had even attempted to leave their territory. Sir, we are detecting massive troop movements on the planet below," his intelligence officer reported. "The Velkari are mobilizing their ground forces." "Let them," Bei replied with a tired smile. "Ground forces cannot fight ships in space. They are preparing for an invasion that will never come." This was the genius of the human strategy. The Velkari expected their enemies to act like they would, striking quickly with overwhelming force. Instead, the humans had positioned themselves to control every aspect of the situation without firing a single shot. Weeks passed, and still the human ships waited. The psychological pressure on the Velkari leadership was enormous. They had never faced an enemy that possessed such patience and self-control. Every day that passed without action proved that humanity operated on a timescale the aliens could not comprehend. "They are playing a game we do not understand," Emperor Kexval admitted to his council. "We prepare for battle, but they refuse to fight. We offer surrender, but they ignore us. What do they want?" The answer came finally when Deho was brought before the Emperor one last time. The ancient human walked slowly into the throne room, accompanied by guards who were clearly afraid of him. News of his true identity had spread throughout the Empire, and every Velkari now knew they had been harboring their greatest enemy for over a century. "Ambassador," the Emperor said formally, "your people have surrounded our worlds and paralyzed our empire. What are your terms for ending this crisis?" Deho looked up at the alien ruler with eyes that had seen more than any human before him. "Terms? You assume this is a negotiation? This is not a war between equals seeking advantage. This is a lesson in the consequences of underestimating an entire species." "Then what do you want from us?" "I want you to understand what humanity truly represents," Deho replied. "You see us as a young species that appeared recently in galactic history. This is your fundamental error." The Emperor leaned forward, desperate to understand his enemy's thinking. "Humans have existed for millions of years," Deho continued. "We have survived ice ages, plague, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed most species. We learned patience not as a philosophical concept, but as a survival requirement." Admiral Kim Soo-jin listened to her great-grandfather's words from her command ship positioned above the Velkari capital. She had been born during his captivity and raised on stories of his sacrifice. Now she commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. "When your scouts first found us, we had two choices," Deho explained. "Fight immediately and probably lose, or wait until we were certain of victory. We chose to wait. We chose to learn. We chose to prepare." 150 years of preparation for this moment? The Emperor asked in amazement. 150 years was nothing, Deho replied with a slight smile. "Humans think in geological time. We make plans that span millennia. What you call patience, we call Tuesday." The true scope of human temporal thinking was something the Velkari could never fully grasp. While they measured success in decades, humans planned for centuries. While they sought quick victories, humans accepted that true victory might take generations to achieve. "Your empire is defeated not because our ships are stronger or our weapons more powerful," Deho continued. "You are defeated because we spent longer preparing for this war than your species has existed as a spacefaring civilization." Master tactician Lim Dong-Wu processed data from human forces throughout Velkari space and confirmed what everyone already knew. The Empire had no choice but to surrender completely. Every possible escape route was blocked, every defensive position was compromised, and every strategic resource was under human control. "We offer unconditional surrender," Emperor Kexval said finally. "What will happen to our people?" "You will be allowed to govern your worlds under human oversight," Deho replied. "Your military will be disbanded and your weapons destroyed. Your people will learn to live peacefully with other species or face the consequences." "And what of our pride? What of our honor as warriors?" Deho looked at the Emperor with something that might have been sympathy. "Your pride was based on the belief that strength and speed determined victory. You have learned that patience and preparation are superior to both. Perhaps this lesson will make you wiser." Captain Han Yuri received the final orders from Admiral Choi as Velkari forces throughout their empire began standing down. The surrender was complete and unconditional. Humanity had achieved total victory without firing a single shot. "Set course for Earth," she ordered her crew. "Our mission here is complete." As human ships began the long journey home, Deho was finally released from his century-and-a-half of captivity. The ancient spy who had sacrificed his entire life for the security of his species was returning to a humanity that now dominated known space. "Was it worth it?" Sora asked him as they watched the Velkari capital world shrink behind them. Deho considered the question carefully. He had given up everything a human could give: his youth, his freedom, his chance for family and normal life. All to ensure that humanity would survive its first contact with hostile aliens. "Ask me in another century," he replied finally. "The real test is not whether we can defeat our enemies, but whether we can govern them wisely." The waiting game was over, but the longer game of galactic